There's been debate for a lot of years about what it is that education in school context especially is trying to do. So if you think of a range of terms, you could start at one end with just training, right? The kind of thing that happens when you start working at Starbucks and you just need to know how to make an espresso properly. But you're not being asked to think about it, you're not being asked to question company policy, you're not being asked to invent a new recipe for your espresso, you just need to be trained how to do it, right? And that shades over into people sometimes talk about instruction, right? Instruction is when, again, I've got a bunch of content I want to teach you and I'm just going to tell it to you, you're going to write it down, you're going to repeat it on the test. Then we start to shade over into kind of the education end of the scale, which is where I maybe actually want to change the way you think about the world. I want to give you some tools for rethinking. I want to let you dream dreams, see visions. I want you to turn into this person that you weren't before you came into school. And the big argument then is, should I do that with some kind of vision ahead of time as to what kind of person you're going to turn into? Right? I want you to turn into a person who's going to treat other people a certain way, who's going to believe about the world in certain ways, who's going to behave in certain ways? Or should it really be maximally open-ended, that all I'm really trying to give you is kind of a toolkit that you can use to turn into whatever person you autonomously want to turn into? So to the degree that we want to talk about you're supposed to become a certain kind of person, that's when we tend to start using formation language, right? You come into school unformed, right? You come not a blank slate, there's stuff going on in there, right? But you come as someone who's not yet who you're going to be, and we try to steer what direction you're going to grow in. And obviously there are more and less specific visions as to what that's going to be, right? Do I want you to be Christian? Do I want you to be conservative? Do I want you to be a good citizen? Do I want you to be a Muslim, right? There's people would have various degrees of problems with different degrees of specificity of vision, but I'm trying to form you into something. Whereas at the other end of the scale are people who would say, no, we really just want critical thinking, right, sort of basic skills for participating in a participatory democracy, these kinds of things, but who you want to turn into is your business, not the teachers. The other area where we've got a growing amount of research at the moment is how teachers process this idea of formation in Christian schools. There's an important study just came out in England by Trevor Cooling and his colleagues looking at Christian teachers in church schools and how they think about the task of formation. And one of the interesting tensions that came out there was that many Christian teachers, even teaching in Christian schools in England, found it difficult to find a way of thinking about how their faith related to what they did as a teacher, and consequently were actually a little uncomfortable with the idea of formation. Whereas other teachers in the same schools who were more able to find a connection between their faith and a view of human flourishing, rather than thinking of their faith as just evangelism or just doctrine, were more comfortable with the idea of formation and were finding ways of building values into their classes. So even within Christian schools, you can't assume that Christian teachers are thinking about it the same way or using the same approaches, even where the school has quite a clear mission statement and you know, quite an articulate approach to the question of formation. Individual teachers are interpreting it differently. I work a lot with teachers, so I think of this in the first place in terms of my own work, in terms of what's happening with teachers. There's been some calls recently for all kinds of schools to become more explicit about the kind of formation they're offering. In other words, the suggestion here is it's not just Christian schools that are offering formation, all schools are offering formation of a certain kind. Every school has a value system. Every school subject is taught in a way that implies a certain kind of value system, that implies a vision of what this subject is, what its place is in the world, what kinds of things we should be doing. If you go to math class and all of the word problems are to do with spending money, right, that's a value system, right? I once went through a whole math textbook and every single word problem was to do with either earning money or using money to buy consumer goods. There wasn't a single example of charitable giving, for instance. That's formation, right? Do that for a year in math class, that's formation. You're learning what numbers are for and what they're not for. And so I think it's healthy that there's pressure in a number of contexts at the moment for all schools to become more articulate about what kind of formation they're offering. Because one of the barriers to teachers thinking well as formation is when they have this idea in their head that I just teach math. I just teach geography, that's all I do, that's what I was hired to do, I'm not in this formation business. That's pretty much a delusion, and when teachers are thinking about their task that way, it's difficult for them to become articulate in their own practices in terms of what they're offering students in terms of a value framework in formation terms. So I'd like to see schools become much more explicit in that way, become more invested in conversations within school faculties about what are the ways in which our value systems are expressed in our pedagogical actions, right, in the way that we teach. Let me tell you a story, if there's time, about a school where I was actually at a parent-teacher conference, and I talked to two science teachers, one after another. And I think one was the chemistry teacher, the other was the physics teacher. And one of them, the first one, we sat down, we shook hands, and he ran his finger down his grade book, down the list of names, till he got to my son's name, and then he ran his finger across the list of scores, and he read them out one by one. He got a 9 on this task, then he got a 9.5. Got to the end of the list, gave me the percentage for the semester, and then he smiled at me as if he'd said something intelligent. And then I got up, we had a little chat, walked to sit next to the physics teacher, and he sat back, stroked his beard for a moment. He said, yeah, I've appreciated having your son in my class, because where your son sits in class, there's another student who sits right behind him who has some learning difficulties. And I've noticed your son choosing tactful moments in the class to just turn around and make sure this other child knows what's going on, because it's hard for him to stay on track through a long blocked science class. And I've really appreciated this because I've been emphasizing to my class this semester that while we're learning science together, we need to function as a Christian learning community, and that means looking after weaker members. It means you're not just here for your own grade and your own success, you're here for the well-being of the people sitting around you. And so this has been a really good contribution to the class. I'm really pleased with this. And I thought his two teachers in the same school both teach science. Now, in terms of the science outcomes, both great teachers, right? They both know how to get the students to understand science concepts. So I'm getting that result from both of those teachers. One of them's also invested in a character formation project. And so I find myself asking, which of these teachers would I like to be teaching my kids? I'm going to go for the second one, because I'm getting more than just the science, and I'm still getting the science. It's not that I'm giving the science up to get this. So big task to me is to try to help teachers like that second teacher to become articulate to themselves and their students about what it is they're trying to do beyond just transmitting information.